You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I was just finishing up a text to my usual co-host, the great Mark Pellegrino. He is working again. He just informed me that he may be able to join us tomorrow, and that would be absolutely wonderful. He is of course, chairman of the American Capitalist Party, and I am the vice chairman, although the show is not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party. I'm also the host of the Rational Egoist podcast. Please check it out. I think you will absolutely love it. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to this show. Please, look, you hit the like button, you hit the share button from YouTube, you put it to your social media, and then you can forget about it. And also go to the actual YouTube site and leave your comments, because that's a big help with the algorithm. So we have an abundance of stories to talk about, but there's also a breaking story taking place. And there was a shooting at an ICE detention facility, I guess, this morning. And I don't want to talk about that because I know next to nothing about it. They haven't even had time to do a proper investigation or anything else. But that does not stop people from commenting. That does not stop people from rushing in to make all kinds of claims about what it represents and what it is. I just wish that would stop. The vice president of the United States is out there doing it. It is so irresponsible for him to do so. And it's just to score political points. Really? And like, people go for that. How in the heck do people fall for base political propaganda and base political motivation? It's so obvious. But nonetheless, they'll continue to do it. I'll continue to complain about it. Hopefully, we'll be able to reach some people that will understand that it's important to get all the necessary information before we make judgments. Now, that doesn't mean that your initial intuition is necessarily going to be wrong, but it does mean that you have to verify your initial intuition with facts and analysis. Go through a reasoning process, assess the evidence, and then come to conclusions. Not what's going on X right now. Is my feed is being flooded with people who have an opinion on this thing already. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens there. I feel there were two detainees actually that were shot and killed. And the shooter shot himself. At least that's the word. That's the official story coming out now. That is not the news from X. So I read a wonderful article this morning, and the article piggybacks on Friedrich Hayek, the great Austrian economist. Oh, look at that. Mark Pellegrino is watching from the car to the studio. Thank you very much for joining us, Mark. All of our thoughts are, of course, with you, knowing what you're going through, and you have all of our support. And we can't wait to have you back, by the way. So, great article I read from the Mises Institute this morning, called Kill Capitalism. No, it's called If Socialists Actually Understood Socialism. Now, like I said, this is a piggyback off of the great Friedrich Hayek, who once said if socialists understood economics, they would not be socialist. But the author of this article makes the case, and does so in a very powerful way, a very convincing way, that socialists don't even understand socialism, rather. And what he means by this is, traditionally and historically, socialism has meant collective ownership of the means of production, right? The factories, the capital goods, the means to produce the things that people will consume. modern day people who call themselves socialists, that does not seem to be their goal. They don't want to own or appropriate the means of production. What they want to do is appropriate and distribute that which has been produced. So they take production for granted, that production is going to take place. And then because they find it to be unfair in their view, they want to redistribute it. They want to pass it around, give it to the people that they think is more worthy. There's an interesting dynamic taking place there, because even if they were to seize the factors of production, then they themselves would have to do the producing. But the way that they go about it nowadays, they don't actually have to produce anything. They can still rely on somebody else's effort, on somebody else's time, somebody else's intelligence, and then just take that and give it to somebody else. Of course, what's absent from this analysis is the fact that if you continue to take what people produce, they're going to stop producing it, because who in the hell wants to do that? Just keep producing for somebody else. And it also ignores the robbery that's taking place, right? That these people want to, at the point of a metaphorical gun that will turn into a real gun, they want to take the stuff that is produced. And I just wonder, what was the motivation in the shift of what socialists want, of what socialists recommend, going from the appropriation of the means of production to that which is produced? I heavily think that it lies in the fact that it's just about, well, not just about, largely about envy of the people that are the producers, and also about the knowledge that they cannot produce the stuff themselves. So it's much easier, in their view, to take it from others. So us capitalists, what we need to do is to continue to make the case for capitalism, continue to demonstrate it, that it's the only moral system there is, that it is the only system that produces the results that even the socialists claim that they want, which is the greatest prosperity for the greatest number. In terms of standard of living, life expectancy, nothing beats capitalism. So let's just keep advocating for it. Let's recommend the books: Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal by Ayn Rand, Frederick Bastiat's The Law. And then if they really want to get into it, maybe they can read Mises's Human Action, Atlas Shrugged, The Fountainhead, whatever it takes. We just need to keep pushing the message. Capitalism is good, socialism sucks, and we have the arguments on our side. Akira Felix says, yes, I hate that whenever I meet a self-described socialist in real life, they don't know anything about it. They haven't even read the pamphlet, the Communist Manifesto. They're uneducated. And Horace Jacobson said, most of today's socialists just want free stuff. That's why they think Sweden is what peak socialism looks like. They have a huge welfare state, yet lack every other part of socialism. I've actually read some pretty convincing articles about Sweden, that it's far from socialist, that it actually did go socialist and had horrible results. And now they actually are in many ways more capitalist than the United States. Jonah Norberg was the author. He writes a lot on the topic. He's Swedish. I highly recommend checking out his stuff. So what else do I got here? Oh, this is great. Now, for the last, 5 days or so, I've been told, we've all been told. I just did what I don't like when somebody says I've been told, but no one's actually told me personally. It's all over the place, that Kimmel was fired. It was purely a business decision, and it had nothing to do with the federal government, nothing to do with Donald Trump, nothing to do with the FCC. But while the toadies were out there defending the Donald was busy undercutting them. And Robert Trzynski said on my Facebook page this morning that basically these people are like masochists. They keep defending this guy, and he, throws him under the bus every time. And so this is what the Donald said on Truth Social. I can't believe ABC fake news gave Jimmy Kimmel his job back. The White House was told by ABC that his show was canceled! Something happened between then and now because his audience is gone and his talent was never there. Why would they want someone back who does so poorly, who's not funny? And this is key right here, and who puts the network in jeopardy. Well, now what does that mean, Donald? They put the network in jeopardy. And he says they put the network in jeopardy by playing 99% positive Democrat garbage. He is yet another arm of the DNC, and to the best of my knowledge, that would be a major illegal campaign contribution. I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million. This one sounds even more lucrative. A true bunch of losers. Let Jimmy Kimmel rot in his bad ratings. Am I going to be told that? Are we going to be told that these aren't threats? Are we going to be told that Donald did not think that he had something to do with the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel? Why would it matter that the White House was told that he was gone? Why would a network who is simply suspending somebody as a business decision or firing somebody because of business decision feel the need to report to the White House? It doesn't make much sense to me, but much of what the Donald does not make sense to me. And I just hope that people begin to wake up on this. Now, there's an interesting dynamic taking place in that Google has admitted to Congress that they engaged in censorship at the behest of Joe Biden and the Biden administration. Now, I was up at 3:00 this morning reading about this. I was posting about it. I was getting the article ready to discuss it on today's show. I discussed it in the past, even when I didn't know if there was government interference there. I said, if it's a simple matter of social media companies wanting to platform whomever they want, the government has no say in it. If it's a matter of the government putting pressure on them, then the problem is with the government. So as I'm doing all of this, this morning, going through the information, preparing to talk about this, I also posted, I didn't post the stuff about this story to Facebook. I only posted it to X. To Facebook, I shared the aforementioned quote from Donald Trump from Truth Social. So my cousin decided to come in and post this, this article, not this specific one, but an article or a video. I'm not really sure because I didn't bother to look at it because I really don't care. I know what the information is about Biden putting pressure on social media. It was basically a what about. Now, I had specifically told this cousin to please not put me in this situation. Don't put me in a situation to make you look stupid. I don't want to do it. You're my cousin. I love you. Please don't do it. But alas, he keeps doing it. So I went to that page and I said, look, one thing I said is I'm not a tribalist. I have no problem criticizing anybody that violates freedom of speech. I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, or whatever. If they're violating freedom of speech, they need to be called out on it. That's simple. That's not a problem for me. I also showed him all the posts I put on X criticizing Google. I told him how I had, prepared this morning to discuss this issue. And I told him, look, you are a tribalist. You only see things in terms of tribes, not in terms of principle. Of course, he didn't address any of this. He comes back and says, yeah, well, what do you think are the requirements of the FCC for someone to stay on air? I said, I don't care, because the FCC should not exist. Such an organization of censorship should not exist, period. But then I pointed out to him that the specific portion that the FCC or that the FCC head is relying on is the public interest section, which requires that somebody be deliberately lying. There has to be the intent to lie, and it also has to put the public in danger. The problem is nobody can know if Jimmy Kimmel was lying when he said it. Even if he's wrong, a mistake is not a lie. So good luck proving that aspect of it. The putting the public at danger, really? How? If that's putting the public at danger, then the stuff coming out of Magosphere certainly puts the public at danger, because it's far worse than what Kimmel said. And then finally, this whole public interest standard, Brendan Carr, just a few years back, wrote about how the public interest ought not to be the standard that we're going by when dealing with these types of issues. Funny how his position has now changed. Why has it changed? Gee, I wonder, because he's now in charge, his guy's in charge. But anyways, Google, this whole thing with Biden violating speech, this is a serious problem. That when the government thinks that the American people aren't smart enough to understand politics, aren't smart enough to make their own decisions, when the government thinks that it has to protect people, or even more sinister, that they have to sway people in order to keep themselves in power, this is a problem. Joe Biden was not a good man, not a good president. I have disliked Joe Biden, I don't know, for nearly 2 decades, going back to his comments about keeping y'all in chains, when he talked to a black audience about Republicans, to his despicable behavior when he was debating Paul Ryan. I don't like him, and I sure as hell don't like his policies, and I definitely don't like the fact that he was engaged in trying to censor Google, and Google ultimately caved, which also I think that I didn't say Paul Ryan, Akira Felix. Yes, the debate was with Paul Ryan. If I said something else, I apologize. But nevertheless, not a Biden fan, not a fan of censorship. It's horrendous when it's done by anybody. And, I saw somebody posted this morning criticizing FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, I think it is. I'm not exactly sure, but it's a big free speech organization. And somebody was accusing them of the same thing. It didn't, that they're only criticizing one side. It did not take long for the receipts to come in that, in fact, FIRE has been criticizing everybody on free speech. A few years ago, I interviewed the head of FIRE, Harvey Silverstein, who defended Trump on my show. He said that Trump should not have been charged with any crimes while he's running for a political office. He said that the special counsel, the FBI, they could have waited. Now, whether you agree or disagree with him, those are certainly not the words of a left-wing partisan. But yet, in our tribal atmosphere that we live in today, anytime you express an opinion, it's assumed you're in one tribe and against somebody else's tribe. Truly terrible, terrible stuff. I saw a question here that I want to answer. I have not read this article, Ian Gilmore, Umberto Eco's article on UR fascism. Can you send it to me, Ian, either on Facebook or X? I'd really appreciate it. Megan Ribbons, says, do I think that Andy Bernstein would be interested in talking about his book on education with the two of us? I think he very much would be interested in it, Megan, and I would be glad to have you on The Rational Egoist. I plan on doing that interview within the next couple of weeks. And when I do it, I'm very confident that Andy will have you on. I am definitely willing to have you on. So if it ends up that you can't do it, to blame Andy Bernstein. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. Let me just scroll down, see if there's any other comments. Megan says, thanks. Ariana says, drives her crazy. You are not the only one. Republicans call Akira Felix a leftist because he's an atheist. Speaking of atheism, I didn't have this in the queue, to use Mark Pellegrino's favorite term. I didn't have it in the queue, but I just saw this thing from Megyn Kelly about curses and prayers and I'm just thinking, like, how can people still believe in this stuff? Curses, like what? Curses? It's 2025, for God's sake. I'm able to sit in my office, actually not my office, in Subby's office, in front of a computer screen and talk to people around the world because of reason, because of technology. And yet people still believe in ghosts and demons. It's absolutely freaking maddening. All right, let's Catherine Mackenzie Sterling. And by the way, can we go back to Kat? I'm just going to call you Kat. This Catherine Mackenzie stuff, I'm over it. We're not going with it. You don't get to just switch up in midstream. We're all used to calling you Kat. Kat Sterling is tired of the word Q. Q. Okay, I kid. So anyways, as I referenced earlier, Jimmy Kimmel returned last night, and evidently, I don't know if it was an apology, but he, said he never meant to do any harm. He didn't mean to offend anybody, and he gave a vigorous talk about. Thank you, Ian Gilmore, for sending that to me. He gave a vigorous talk about freedom of speech, all good stuff. To be honest, I don't really care. Like, I don't care about Jimmy Kimmel. I don't really give a damn what he has to say. I don't think he's a very insightful person when it comes to politics. I remember him promoting a few years ago, universal health care. So I don't care. It's not about Jimmy Kimmel, in my view. It's about freedom of speech. And it's about understanding that the FCC and the president of the United States ought not to be issuing threats to networks. Oh, Mark Pellegrino, my book has arrived at his house and now at the top of his queue. Kat Sterling is not going to like that, Mark, that you said queue again, but that's fine because I'm going through my queue right now of stories to talk about. So yeah, like people tell me, well, Jimmy Kimmel's not funny. Yeah, don't care. I don't watch the show anyway. I'm asleep by then. So just so you know, it's not a big thing for me. Couldn't care less about Jimmy Kimmel. Don't like him. Not a fan. Do not think the government should be taking him off the air. If ABC judges that he's getting bad ratings and they could do better, then fine. Get him out of there. Manu says tomorrow 5 huge books will be on top of mine. Well, I don't think so. I trust Mark. I think Mark is a swell guy, and I think he's going to read this book. If Mark does not read my book at this point, he is going to get so tormented on this show. That's going to be it. Tormented. We may have to do an entire show where all we do is roast him as if we were on Dean Martin. Okay. Robert Naser says he watched Kimmel's monologue. First time ever watching him on YouTube. It's sitting at 11,380,725 views. The monologue was okay, but him returning after the FCC threats equals awesome. I can kind of go with that, Robert. I do like the fact that ABC put him back on. But to me, it was never about Jimmy Kimmel and never about whether he's on the air or not. To me, once the FCC issued the threats, that was the problem. Had he never been taken off the air, it still would have been a problem. Had he been taken off the air forever, it would have been a problem. To me, the fundamental problem is the federal government thinking they have the right to control speech in this country. So Gary Menard says he's never watched Jimmy Kimmel for more than 2 minutes, but he saw on Facebook an interview by him with the new head of the FCC, and he say he may watch him now. Don't be mean to Mark. Send funnies. We love Mark, but if Mark doesn't read my book, we have to be mean. There's no I don't know what the hell. There's no doubt about it. We'll go with that because it makes it nice. Jason Adams said that I like any of them, Michael. Just curious. Letterman, Leno, Carson. Sometimes. I mean, when I used to stay up, I like them, and it depends on the guest. I usually enjoy the monologue at the beginning. I found those kind of funny. And to be honest, I mean, I've seen Jimmy Kimmel's show. I've seen him with my favorite comedian, Don Rickles, and I thought that was pretty funny. To me, Don Rickles is funny with anybody, though. So there's that. So, I've never been a big late night show guy, but I have watched some of them, and I did like them. All right, what else we got going on here? My girlfriend earlier on asked about the mountain lions. So in Los Angeles, California, and I really wish I had on Mark for this because he lives in LA, or even Jim who lives in San Diego, but they've both bailed on me. So in Los Angeles, they want to build a bridge, a $92 million bridge, so that mountain lions can move around. Now, the article gets into all kinds of analysis about the cost, the benefits, other ways to preserve the mountain lion. But no, I'm not drinking coffee. I'm drinking water. I've already had my coffee. I've had 2.5 cups or 2.5 cups of coffee and a mini Diet Coke. I'm caffeinated to the hilt. But anyways, my issue here is what in the frick is the government doing being involved in trying to preserve mountain lions? I just I like there's like a block in my head. Well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I'm a blockhead, but there's I just can't understand what would motivate somebody to think that the government needs to be building anything to protect mountain lions. Uh, Maybe let people own them privately. That'll preserve them. People, private people do a much better job than the government at these things. So if you really care about mountain lions, let them be privately owned. Let people breed them. And maybe then there'll be too much and people say, hey, I'm sick of these goddamn mountain lions. Why the hell are they here? But nonetheless, I'm curious, what do you folks think? Should the government of a state be involved in preserving mountain lions? Let's see if we've got any questions. Race Jacobson said, this is why everyone was saying I didn't agree with Kirk, but before denouncing the assassination. It's assassination. You can see the partisan accusations a mile away. We shouldn't have to qualify it. I agree with that, Race. I think that's well put, well stated on your part. Ariana Sneath says, nope. So, Manu is now deriding me because of the type of coffee I drink. She said I drink instant coffee and that shit is not coffee. Manu, just for the record, I don't just drink instant coffee. When I'm at home, I drink instant coffee, but I also drink brewed coffee from Starbucks, from Dunkin' Donuts, from a variety of coffee shops out there. I love lattes, just so you know. So it's not just that. And by the way, Manu, now that we've brought up the coffee issue, for the audience to know, Manu has promised me that she is going to send me some coffee. So I'm putting this out there. If Manu does not send me coffee, we are going to put her in the same position as Mark in regards to my book. Mark needs to read the book. Manu needs to send the coffee. That's all I'm going to say. Ariana Sneath says private interest groups should save the lions if they want to. Ariana, you are right again. Boy, Ariana's spot on today. Let's see, we got anything else? Ariana also called me a blockhead, so maybe I was too quick to say she's spot on today. maybe she's not batting 1,000 on this one, right? All right, let's see what else we got. Yeah, we already talked about that. Nick Gillespie, I'm curious to what people think about this because I did not watch the Charlie Kirk memorial. I saw bits and pieces. I saw clips. But Nick Gillespie wrote a piece in Reason Magazine where he says that this memorial might actually spell the end of MAGA. The title of the article is Why the Charlie Kirk Memorial Might Spell the End of Trump and MAGA. And he just talks about the things that were said there by Stephen Miller, by Tucker Carlson, by Trump himself, turning this memorial into basically a political event where they went after their enemies and things of that nature. So it might be. I'm loath to make political predictions because things can turn on the dime. But I got to tell you, putting Stephen Miller may be great for the MAGA folks, but I cannot imagine your average person tunes in and sees Stephen Miller and like, yeah, that's my guy. Let's listen to him. Like, I can't imagine it. Maybe, but I don't know. But what do you think, audience? Let's chime in here. Give me some help. I'm all alone, for God's sake. I need to know your opinion. Stop talking about coffee and energy drinks and let's get here. I like numbers says Nick is a moderate libertarian. Oh, okay. Thank you for the info. Robert Nacer says, in theory, people can live without coffee, but that's just a theory. And he's skeptical. That's one I got to say. I don't think it sounds good in theory, though, Robert. I don't like the idea of living without coffee. The caffeine is good. I'm a proud caffeine addict, and I have no desire to reform. You know what's happened to me? Let me deviate from politics and whatnot for a few minutes. Many times when in prison, I tried to quit coffee. And I was told the reason that I needed coffee for energy was because I was addicted to coffee. And that if I quit coffee, I would then be just boiling over with energy and enthusiasm. Unfortunately, what happened is every single time I I quit coffee. I ended up exhausted during the day. And I'm not talking the next day. I mean, weeks and weeks afterward. So it got to the point where I was in this program in prison where we couldn't sleep during the day. So I end up sitting there and I'm trying so hard not to sleep and I'm nodding out. And I said, man, screw this. I'm getting back on the coffee. And I haven't looked back. I'm all in. Coffee, energy drinks, whatever you want to do. Give me the caffeine. And I'm going with it. Megan Ribbons says nobody has ever died from vacuuming, but why risk it? And she says that's her favorite appeal to the arbitrary. You might be right. Ronald Reagan once said, I believe, nobody died from hard work, but why risk it? He had a way. Now, I liked Ronald Reagan. Let me just put it there. But somebody says that Diego. Deeper with Diego says Stephen Miller makes Ankar Gate seem like The Rock. He pronounced it Gante. It's actually Gate. I'll give you an interesting factoid, Diego. The first person that I ever interviewed, and I didn't do it on my podcast, I did it for a local radio station, was Ankar Gate. First person. He was nice enough when I asked him to come on the Todd Feinberg show. He came on. I did the interview. It was a nice conversation. Cat needs sleep. Okay, Manu, you're on track. You are calling her Cat. Good. Because we're not going with this Catherine stuff. She doesn't get her way on this, and I mean it. What else we got here? Oh, the Daily Economy posted about free transit, the free transit for everybody. And again, it focused on the economics of it, on how, opportunity costs, the money that's got to go to free transit, because nothing's really free. You have to pay for it. The money that goes toward the transit is money taken from everybody else, from other instances where people actually want to spend their money. It focuses on the, inevitable inefficiencies, that type of thing. But again, to me, it's the initiation of force. It's the immorality of taking people's money against their will to finance what they consider to be a public good. That is not how a free society works. But I will say this, even small costs, right? Even small costs can serve as a regulator or a deterrent to free riders, to people that just want to use things without paying for them. And I'll give you an example. Healthcare in prison used to be free in Connecticut, right? And you can imagine that you've got inmates, and inmates are always trying to scam stuff. They want the mattress, they want an e-brace, they want this, they want that. So they're always going to medical with grievances. Plus you have the hypochondriasis rather. That's very common in prison. So after a while, they put on a copay, $3. $3 copay. You go to medical, you got to pay $3. That's not very much, right? But it served as a deterrent. That very $3, which is only $3, stops some people from abusing the system. So when you put a cost on something, people tend to appreciate it more. They tend to understand that this is going to take some of your own time and effort to get you this service, to get you this product. So that is a good thing. It seems to me that if you just make transit completely free, you're going to end up with a surplus of people that want to use it who otherwise would not be using it. That is not a good thing. Katie, whoa, listen, folks, I don't know who's introducing the idea of Katie, but it's not Katie, it's not Catherine, it's Cat. That's it. I understand that people think this is a democracy. It's not. This is a totalitarian dictatorship. No, Katie, I know you are Katie, and that's fine because you are actually Katie. But as you correctly state, she is Cat. Now, somebody suggested, I guess, calling her Katie as well, but then someone else said it would be confusing. I don't care if it's confusing, not confusing. It's not Katie. It's Cat Sterling. That's it. And Cat now concedes. She admits it. I'm glad she's repented and has changed her ways. That's wonderful. I'm not a God dictator. No, I'm not a God dictator. I never claimed to be a God dictator, just a regular run-of-the-mill dictator of the American, of the capitalist corner. Aha. I almost got confused there and slipped up. Jason Adams says if he attends the Irreplaceable Spark conference, he's thinking he will never need caffeine again. Interesting story about the Irreplaceable Spark conference. You know, I have often joked about the wealth of one Rosie Ginsburg, my friend Rosie. And it turns out the other day, I'm driving down the Silestein Highway in Wethersfield, and I see a sign that says, let me make sure. Let me just find it so I can read it to you so that there's no confusion. Let me just see it. Here you go. It says Rosie's Hair Salon. Now, I've never heard the name Rosie before. So is this a coincidence, or does Rosie actually own a hair salon in Wethersfield, Connecticut? Thoughts? I don't know. I do know that my rants and getting off topic has cost me about 20 viewers on the screen. So maybe we should talk about something else. I did an excellent interview this morning about negative self-talk and the harms it causes in terms of anxiety and depression. And it talked about the lady I interviewed. She actually wrote a bunch of great articles and a great book. But there's two types of thought processing, two types of networks: the default mode network and the executive control network. And the default mode network is basically your automatic thoughts. You have no control over this. And this is the default. These are the thoughts that just run through your head that you are not controlling. You're just listening to. And those, she says, for evolutionary reasons, tend to be negative. So they're going to put you in a bad frame of mind, especially if you believe them. But the executive control network, that's operated by volition. So we can actually choose to interrupt the default mode network, implement the executive control network, and change the way that we think, and thereby change the way that we feel. Now, this is, the fundamental to cognitive behavioral therapy. Objectivism talks about how it's your values that determine your emotions. And this ultimately is how you are going to change your thinking, change your beliefs, change your emotions. Fascinating. And I highly recommend when that episode comes out next week, that we see it. So Nicole Hingle says, why do I hate nicknames so much? I don't hate nicknames at all, Nicole. I'm just teasing. I love nicknames. I'm prone to giving people nicknames, often nicknames that they don't want. But back to the I don't care thing is, where I'll go. All right. So we're 37 minutes into this thing. I've run through every story that I have. So I need some questions, folks. If you want to stay on the air, I am going to need some questions, and I'm going to need them fast because I'm going to die up here, and I can't have that. That's for sure. Let me see here if I got anything else. Oh, Cat Sterling, it's so cute that you think I wouldn't know about dialectical behavior or your thinking in Marsha Linehan. I've read the foundational text to it, but that's cool. I appreciate the suggestion, Cat. Persephone has her hands over her face right now. Evidently, I've caused some offense. Perhaps I've crossed over a line of some sort. As I am wont to do, I often piss people off. It's an amazing fact that I spent a quarter century in prison and nobody ever punched me in my face. Very, very shocking. I may have a very punchable face, and people have been, had the desire to, but never have. I've never been around a mountain lion in the wild, and I don't plan on it. Let's see. Megan Ribbons wants to know if I can explain more what falls under the umbrella of executive functioning. Executive functioning is in essence, Megan, just your intentional thoughts, the thoughts that you have control over, the decisions that you are making when you decide to focus. And in the terms of that Ayn Rand or Leonard Peikoff would put it in, it's the choice to focus or not, to think or not to think. The choice that you use when you decide to focus your attention, and you're doing it deliberately and not just allowing thoughts to swim through your head. I don't know what that relevance, the Manu thing. Nicole Hingle says, LOL, Michael. Greg Doherty, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. I find these people to be reprehensible. I love you too, Diana. Thank you for the encouragement. I love Diana a lot. She's my girlfriend. She's great. The problem is I'm also an insatiable flirt, right? I flirt. That's what I do. I flirt. And I just fear that when Diana comes and makes appearances, that then when I flirt, I look like the jerk. But I'm not a jerk. I love Diana. She's wonderful. I'm so fortunate to have her in my life. But I did spend 25 years in prison, so I'm way, way behind on my flirt quotient. So I need to flirt. That's it. I don't know. I don't even know how I got there, but whatever. Sometimes Diana says I can flirt it up, and I'm good. I'm a good flirt. I'll tell you that I am. I'm good at flirting. It is harmless, Nicole. Flirting on the show is different than at a bar from I Like Numbers. Well, that's interesting. I don't know who I'd flirt with on the show. Certainly not Mark. But he's the only guy, the one that's in front of me. And I promise you, I'm not flirting with Mark. Whether that's a two-way street, I can't say. You'd have to ask Mark. He has made some comments that could be maybe misinterpreted. I don't know, but I am not flirting with one Mark Ross Pellegrino. But back to what the hell was I talking about? Oh, the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire is what we were talking about. These guys, their leader, or one of their leaders, Jeremy Kaufman, actually told me in a debate that much of what he posed is just for being provocative. I find it gross, racist stuff, sexist stuff, anti-immigrant stuff, just stuff that is not very good. I debated Jeremy. I think I handled him pretty well. I recommend anybody go check it out. It was on the Larry Sharp show, or the Sharper Way, I think it's actually called, his show. But nevertheless, I debated Jeremy. Libertarian Party New Hampshire is one of the reasons I stopped calling myself a libertarian, because I do not want to be associated with that. Between the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire and the Mises Caucus, I'd had enough with libertarianism. I called myself a libertarian for 20 years, probably more than 20 years, because broadly, politically, I shared many of the views of the writers, the people that have formed the foundations of libertarianism. But these folks, no way. Sebastian Scalora says I flirt with him too. He wishes. Let me just put that out there. No, not my type. Do you guys know? Here's an interesting fact. About 4 times, maybe 5. Now, Subby was born, I believe, in 73, maybe 74. Not sure. I was born in 76. On numerous occasions, folks have asked Subby if I were his son. So, am I to be flirting with a man who looks like he could be my father? I don't think so. Okay, that is not my jam. Even if it were a good-looking young man, I would have no interest in flirting. But a man who could pass for my dad? No. Okay. You cannot tell Sebastian to ghost me, Manu, because if Sebastian ghosts me, I'm out on the street. I cannot be out on the street. I need a place to sleep. And I need a place to record these. These episodes are very, very important. Luke, I am your father is a great pickup line. Okay, give it a shot. See how it goes. Something tells me that's no better than having the name Deeper with Diego. Either way, I'm guessing not very good pickup lines. Okay, folks, I am going to wrap up here because I have nothing else to say. I've talked myself out. I feel like I'm getting boring, actually. I feel like I'm boring, and I don't like being boring. I like being exciting, and I like coming with a very good take. Tomorrow, Mark may be back. I really hope that he is, because this is tough. Also, tomorrow, I'm hoping that we have... I'm hoping that we we'll have more information on the shooting at the ICE detention center. I'd really like to get into that a little bit and the fallout of it. So tomorrow we will be back. Until then, I got to remind you, please like the episode, subscribe to the show, share the show from YouTube, go to YouTube and comment on the show. That's what you need to do. Okay, so capitalist thought of the day and question of the day. Capitalist thought of the day is this. I previously referenced how I like to flirt, and Diana is perfectly okay with that because she knows that I love her. Now, note that that is a voluntary relationship between Diana and me. There's nobody forcing us. There's nobody prescribing rules from the outside on how we ought to behave. It's purely voluntary. And there's some people that may not want to be in a relationship where their better half is flirting. And that's fine for them. That's their choice. That is the value of free choice, is that different people have different perspectives, different perceptions, different beliefs, and they ought to be free to act out those beliefs as long as they are not initiating force against other people. If it's voluntary and no rights are violated, it ought to be allowed. And this includes everything from speech, drug use, sexual behavior, whatever it is. It's not the government's business unless rights are violated. Okay, so here is my question to the audience today. Are you okay with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife flirting? Is this okay with you? Does it bother you? And please, please tell me why or why not. I don't have a quota of flirting, Manu. It just happens when the mood strikes me. There's no quota. That would be a little strange. Okay. So for now, I'm going to wrap up, and we will see you tomorrow. Please remember, in the words of the wonderful Mark Pellegrino, to always check your premises. Peace.